Hello everyone, my name is Protesilaos, also known as Prot. Today is Saturday, the 25th of April, 2026. Local time is about 7 p.m. and I am out on one of my usual long hikes together with my 4 dogs. We have been walking for about an hour and 20 minutes already, and we will continue doing so for about another hour. What I want to do in this video is elaborate on a philosophical theme. Specifically to elaborate on the connection between violence and safe spaces. Violence and the process of creating a safe space, the process of maintaining a safe space. In this context, I will also talk to you about inevitability, which we can also frame as that which is inescapable. And I will also bring up an example of love in its exclusive capacity, and I will explain what all of this means. Let me start by being concrete. I don't want to be abstract. I want to give you a tangible example of what transpired yesterday morning. So I was doing some work in the stream that is adjacent to my land. I have to be careful with my footsteps because this road is full of rocks, and you can also see it's also eroded, so I have to be extra careful with my steps. Anyhow, I was doing some work by the stream where I have set up a small contraption. I call it the dam, but it's really just a small contraption from where I channel water into my land. There are pipes and water flows into the pipes and they come to my land. So I was clearing the pipes there, and as I was standing in the stream, in the water, and I was working with the pipe, a snake appears on my right hand side. It was about 2 meters in length. And it startled me, but I am not afraid of snakes. I'm not afraid of other animals in general. So I just stood there and I was observing it. And I noticed that it was a black snake. Black snakes are not venomous. So I was like, okay, this is not a threat to me. But apparently I was posing a threat to it. Because once it realized what was happening, once it realized that it came out of some hole or whatever and was confronted with a human, it accelerated away from me. And this event got me thinking about my presence in this land and the presence of humanity in general on this planet, our life in this world. I thought, which is an uneasy thought, if you will, that for me to be here, other forms of life have to be displaced. Like for me to be here, for me to have my habitat in this land, I have to do it at the expense of other animals, animals that are at least incompatible with human survival. And not just animals, this also extends to plants. There are plants that we can live close to and others that we have to move away from. So it reminded me of when I first got to my land. I arrived here about 3 years ago, and my land, where I eventually built the house I live in, the house that I affectionately call the hut, my land was overgrown with vegetation of all kinds, and it was full of all sorts of life forms that are not compatible with human livelihood, such as poisonous snakes, spiders of all kinds, rats, mice, mosquitoes. You get the idea. So what I had to do to create the conditions for my safe space, for my house, was to cut down all that vegetation and to set it on fire. So I quite literally brought fire and steel to the land, fire and steel to create a safe space. I had to commit violence to create that which is no longer violent, that which exists free from violence. And that is, of course, my house. I did it violently because there is no other option. Think about it. I couldn't have just showed up there and made a deal with the animals that lived there, or with the plant that lived there. I couldn't go to the rats and be like, hey, my friends, nice to see you. This is Prot. I'm happy to be here. And I am your new flatmate, as it were. Like, that doesn't work. They won't just negotiate in that way. You just show up and you do what you can simply because you are stronger, more capable. You have the means, you have the tools, you have what it takes to displace them. And it sounds cruel, but this is not specific to me. What I did is not particular to me. It's not like I am an especially violent person. I would say I am not. I am actually a very calm person. Even getting angry is rare. So it's not like I will commit wanton violence on a whimsy. No. And it's not like I am an especially strong man. Of course, I am quite strong. I can do a lot. But it's not like this is specific to me. This is something that all people have the potential for. It's violence of the sort I'm now describing is built in to every settlement. It is built into every house, every village, every city. It is everywhere. Even if you go camping and you want to be responsible how you camp, even if you go camping, you have to find a clearing. You don't just go camp in the tall grass and hope for the best. That's not how you do it. So to have a safe space, to have the house of an individual, me in this case, of course, individual and dogs, right? But to have one house, but also to have a village and a settlement in general, you have to displace other forms of life. In other words, the safe space is carved out of the wilderness with violence. It is carved out of the wilderness with violence, and it is safeguarded with violence again. Like, how do you safeguard the place? You cut down the grass that poses a threat to you. You clear all the weeds, for example, so that you can have food. You will try, however you can, to force other forms of life away from you. Like, you won't want to have tigers roaming around, or bears, or wolves, or whatever, just as you don't tolerate having venomous snakes in your living room and spiders, venomous spiders, hanging from the ceiling while you sleep, right? So you create a safe space at the expense of other forms of life, at the expense of the wilderness. We don't do this because we like it. We don't do this because we have a penchant for violence. No. We do this because we have no alternative. We do this because such is our fate. It is inevitable. It is inescapable. We cannot opt out of it. For as long as we live, for as long as we are in this human form, we have to subsist this way, at the expense of others. And when I say at the expense, I don't necessarily mean that we have to kill them and exterminate them with extreme prejudice. No, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying, though, is that we will have to just move them further away. Whether they survive or not, well, hopefully they make it, but we cannot control that. What matters is that we don't have a choice in the matter. We cannot be like, you know what? I do not like this way that the world is. I do not like the fact that there is violence. So I choose to be passive. I choose to be a pacifist. I choose to only show love towards all other forms of life, and therefore I will live that way. You cannot do that. You can try, but you will fail. You can try to show love towards all forms of life, an all-inclusive kind of love, and see how that works for you. I'm encouraging you, if you believe it genuinely, to go live in accordance with your beliefs and see how that plays out. Love is something that we consider pure, and I think it is, but not in the sense of being all-inclusive. I think love performs an exclusive function. Love is directed to somebody at the expense of others. Think, for example, of a baby. You have an innocent human being, an innocent, helpless human being. The only way for the baby to survive is for other humans to help it, to feed it, to take care of it. And one such human will, of course, be the mother. The mother loves the baby and takes good care of it. Now, think about motherly love for a second and consider whether it is all-inclusive or not. I think it is exclusive, because the mother will not tolerate vectors of attack, possible threats in the midst of the baby. The mother will not tolerate, for example, an extremely filthy, putrid place where there is disease and illness all around. No, the mother wants a clear place, a neat and tidy place, so that the baby isn't exposed to those risks. Similarly, the mother will not tolerate all these animals that are threats to people all around the baby. Same for other human beings, actually. Like the mother will not tolerate some creep just hanging around. That will not happen. That is not acceptable. That is not a tolerable state of affairs. So for the mother to actually take care of the child, for the love of the mother towards the child to actually thrive, it has to be done at the expense of others. So it has to be done by creating this safe space and displacing other forms of life from that space. And within that space itself is safeguarded with violence. That's how it is. Now, violence, I don't mean to say that it's always active. It's always there in the making, in its actuality. It can be in its potentiality. It might happen. For example, this story I told you of the snake that appeared in front of me, I could have grabbed it. It was that close. I wasn't violent. I wasn't making any noise. I wasn't being overtly aggressive. I wasn't trying to threaten it. Nevertheless, the snake knows that I am a form of life that is unlike its own kind, and that I am larger than it, and maybe it even recognizes that I'm a human. But in other words, it knows that I have in me the potential to commit violence of the kind that will annihilate the snake. So I was posing a lethal threat, and that's why it ran away. The potential for violence is essential to understand how we can live in a safe space that looks peaceful without ever realizing that it is underpinned by violence. Think about law. Think about any kind of right that you cherish. For example, the right you have to the freedom of religion, the freedom of expression, to meet with other people or whatever. Like, you have all these rights, the right to property and so on, right? These rights do not exist just because of how everybody likes you. No, that's not how it works. These rights exist because there is a setup in place, an agreement between people on how they choose to conduct their collective force, how they choose to apply violence. And this is a matter of how the society will value certain things over others. For example, a society that values property rights, let's say, individual property rights, will punish thieves, for example. How do you punish thieves? How do you do that? You don't just go there and you say, hey, Mr. Thief, if you are feeling like it this morning, this evening, you can just give back what you stole, and you can apply this penalty to yourself so that you change the manner of your ways and you stop being a thief. That's not how it works. Like, you are a thief, well, we have to deal with you in some way, whether you like it or not. Now, what is that way? Whether it should be punitive or more lenient or whatever, that is a matter of values, but that is secondary to the mechanism I am now describing, the mechanism of forcing it upon the thief, of forcing it upon the transgressor. Like, it's not a matter of choice, my friend. This is how the law is. This is what the law does. And any law or any rule more broadly that is not backed by the potential for the use of force is no rule at all. Like, it cannot work. It will work for as long as people want it to work, but the moment people decide not to do it, the law does not exist. It is as simple as that. It's in your head. So the law will exist as an external force for as long as there is a criterion of conditionality. Like, you do certain behaviors, therefore it's okay. You do other behaviors, now it's not okay, and now you are punished. And of course, the punishment is done without your approval of it. So that's how it is. In other words, violence and the potential for violence is not just for safe spaces in a very narrow sense. No, it is the cornerstone of civilization. It really is that. It is what is the root of society, the root of our interpersonal relations, the root of our affairs. And even though human life is relatively complex relative to other animals, like, for example, I'm talking now about legality and morality, it still is not exclusive to us. Like, what I just described is not exclusive to us. You can take, for example, dogs. Since I have 4 dogs and I am an experienced dog man myself, I know a lot about dogs. I have trained dogs. I have lived with dogs for a long time. I can tell you this. And if you have experienced dogs or other animals yourself, maybe you can relate. So dogs can be animal aggressive. They can exhibit aggression towards other animals. One that is very common is towards cats. Now, you may not know why dogs chase off cats. They don't do it for sport. They actually want to kill the cat. And the reason they want to kill the cat is because they want to exterminate a competitor. Cats are, of course, predators, much like dogs. And predatory as they are, they can, of course, deny resources from dogs because they eat them. So what does the dog do? Eliminate the predator, the competitor rather. And why would it eliminate the competitor? To create the equivalent of a safe space, to create the equivalent of an environment where the dog can now thrive. And it's the exact same mechanism I have been discussing this whole time in relation to people, but it's not specific to people. Of course, we want to understand it for our sake, to conduct our behavior or to calibrate our expectations accordingly, but fundamentally, it's not something that only we are faced with. This is the inevitability of our existence. It is inevitable, it is inescapable, because we cannot negotiate an opt-out clause. We cannot decide that from now on we will choose to live in a different way that doesn't involve this mechanism. One perhaps better way to understand the inevitability is to think about food. The fact that for as long as you are a human, for as long as you are embodied, you have to eat. Like, there is no alternative. You cannot just say, you know what, this food business, this eating thing, I don't like it. I don't like it, and I opt out of it. Like, you cannot do that. Like, you have no choice. Either you will live and eat, or you have to go kill yourself. It's as simple as that. So for as long as you are around, you will be eating. What does eating entail, actually? Eating entails killing some other form of life, whether that is an animal, obviously, or a plant. Again, obviously, if you have ever been around, if you have ever been in the wilderness, you know this already. You know that plants are also forms of life. They are not just there, food for us. They don't just grow on the shelves of the supermarket waiting for us to consume them. No. They are forms of life. They have their own patterns of behavior and their own equivalent of societies, and they are just doing their thing, and they are not food for us, and they will actually develop mechanisms to deter other forms of life that want to eat the plants. Not to elaborate too much on that, I think you get what I am saying. Plants are alive, and we have to kill them in order to survive. It's as simple as that. Furthermore, there is more to this. If you have ever done any kind of farming or gardening, you already know this, but in case you don't know, I will just mention it. To cultivate food, to cultivate vegetables, what do you have to do? You have to delineate some space and say that, okay, within this space, I will grow what I want and drive off all the other forms of life, whether they are animals or vegetables. Like, I will clear the weeds, for example. I will cut down the bramble. I will remove everything I don't want so as to allow that which I am cultivating to thrive. Is that not it? And what is that? What is that? You have to drive away all the insects, all the rodents, all the birds, potentially, to do what you have to do. And what is that? Again, it's something that it's unavoidable. There is no way around it. It's not just the act of eating that will kill other forms of life, but it's also the preparation for food that can have the same effect. But what I am now describing is what I have already mentioned, namely, violence creates a safe space, and violence maintains, preserves, safeguards that safe space, and there is no other way around it. The same is true when we think of safe spaces in a digital realm, or you can think of it in a physical realm as well. You can think of a safe space as a dressing room, for example, right? And you have segregation between the sexes, and you are like, okay, this is the men's dressing room and this is the women's dressing room, and how is that a safe space if you don't have somebody to tell others not to enter in that space? You have to have that, whether it is a person or, let's say, like a guard there, or at least the law. And the law has the potential to punish people, as I already mentioned. Like, there has to be that. Even in an online space, it's the same. Like, you create your own little community of friends or whatever, and you have to have some kind of covenant where you say, okay, this is the rules. These are the rules, and this is how we decide to conduct ourselves. This is our behavior. So if you do something we do not like, then you may be banned. And if you do it again, you may be banned permanently. And if you somehow insist, we might have to resort to the law, right? So we might have to escalate. And of course, if you keep escalating, what is the ultimate form of force that you will arrive at? Brute force, violence. It is as simple as that. So everything you do, everything you cherish, your house, your neighborhood, your city halls, the places where you go play music, the places where you hang out with your friends and you enjoy a drink or whatever. All these are ultimately underpinned by violence, whether it is in the literal sense of clearing some land or in the latent sense. So not literal, in the actual, I mean in the actualized sense. In the actualized sense of clearing some land, or in the latent sense, the potentiality that is of violence, where it is like, well, I could, or we could apply force. Inevitability, folks, is something we cannot bargain with. In the Greek tradition, we think of fate as three. Fate is not monolithic, it's not one thing, it's a triad. And this is represented artistically as three sisters, the three fates, three goddesses. And how I interpret this is as the three fates of choice, chance, and inevitability. The names of the goddesses are not important now for what I'm about to say, but I will just mention it in passing. So we have Klotho, Lachesis, and Atropos. These are the three fates. So choice, chance, and inevitability. Now, how is choice a fate? Choice is a fate because the consequences of your actions are there. You have to live with the consequences of your actions. For example, if I am at a crossroads and the turn to the right takes me to the sea and the turn to the left takes me to the mountain, the choice I will make in that moment will condition whether I will be viewing the mountainside or the seaside. So then I am living with the consequences of my actions, the consequences of my choices. And that is my fate. I am making my fate in that case. Chance, I think it's obvious. That's usually what we think of when we talk about fate. We say, oh, in that fateful moment, in that chance encounter and so on, right? So I think that is clear. And then Atropos, which literally means no way, non-way, atropos. So no way, no behavior, no deviation from it. So atropos is literally that, inevitability. It is the unavoidable, the inescapable, that which you just have to deal with. Such as, for example, the fact that we have to kill in order to feed ourselves. That is atropos. There is no way around it. The artistic imaginary represents the three fates as goddesses. Why are they goddesses? They are goddesses because they are superior to our volition. They are superior to our power. We have no means of undoing the framework within which they have placed us in. We play the game that they have designed, and there is no way for us to just say no, we won't. These are the rules, and the rules are set by the goddesses. So we can, in other words, generalize this and say, well, you do not argue with the gods, you do not argue with the divine, you just accept that which is. You just accept the fact that you are in this condition and you have to deal with this world that we are in, a world of morally gray areas, a world where you cannot just live consistently in the white or in the dark, a world where there is no pure good, no pure evil. It's both good and evil. It's both good and bad, if you want. It's neither good nor bad. It can be both. It is a matter of degree. And so, folks, what matters whenever we are confronted with a difficult decision, whenever we have to face this contradiction of the human experience, where on the one hand we have a certain moral understanding of our deeds, but then those very deeds we have to commit. Whenever we are faced with such difficult circumstances, we have to understand what the alternative is. Is there an alternative? Is there actually a way out? Can I actually practice my morality? Can I actually commit to a life of non-violence, but non-violence not just individually, collectively? Because of course, if you say, hey, me, I can live non-violently, well, you do it because you are privileged. You do it because others are committing the violence. So you cannot have a morality where others are acting as a meat shield for you. That doesn't work this way. Like, you are the beneficiary of other people's violence. And so if you say, oh, I don't commit violence, it's because others do. So you don't have to make the tough choices. But if others stop doing it, then, well, my friend, your turn is coming up and you will have to do the same. So you better steel yourself. You better be mentally prepared for tough choices in life, and to not feel the overwhelming pressure to not do something, or not feel guilt for what effectively is fate. And fate can be cruel. What can we do? So you do what your condition, what our condition renders inescapable. That's all for today, folks. Thank you very much for your attention. It's getting dark here, and I will be heading back, actually, or maybe I can go this way, but I have a very long way to go together with my 4 dogs. We had a good hike. I don't know, so 2 of them are here, the others are not. But anyway, I will continue, and that's all for today, folks. Thank you very much for your attention. Take care, and goodbye for now.